Hello and welcome, and it is absolutely fantastic to have all of you here at the India Today, Business Today AI Congress. And to kick things off, we have one of the most renowned, most energetic professors at the Harvard Business School, and I see a lot of alumni here in the hall who've come specifically to listen to Professor Narayandas. Can we have a warm round of applause, please? Many of us who've had the pleasure of being in his class have seen his energy in full flow, so it won't surprise me at all if he just picks up the mic and is all over this hall in a few minutes from now. Thank you very much, sir, for taking out time and joining us here.
Just to be very clear, I cold call people when I teach, and the alums who are showing up here are not showing up because they want to hear me. They're waiting for a chance to cold call back. So they just want to hit it back. So let's see what happens.
And we'll give as many folks who've come an opportunity to ask some questions, so you can sharpen your question and keep that ready as well. Yeah. Professor Das, like so many of us, you're also grappling with how to deal with the emerging possibilities that artificial intelligence offers. And your work is focused on digital transformation and now, in particular, how AI can harness change. Could you begin by laying out a framework for, because you're interacting with so many companies in India, internationally, some of the best practices that you're seeing which you think are a good framework for trying to leverage the possibilities of artificial intelligence, some of the mistakes that you're seeing these companies make? We'll get started from there.
Sure. First of all, I think, transformation is a powerful word, and it's exactly the word to use. But transformation is the worst thing that you can do by calling whatever you do transformation. Because when a CEO stands up and tells his company or her company, we're going to embark on an AI transformation, the people sitting in the room don't hear the word transformation. They hear, my job is gone. And when someone gets a fear into their mode of, that's going to replace me, their likelihood of being supportive goes down. So one thing that I feel and that I'm writing about now is, in the immediate future, in the world of business, AI is better managed as augmented intelligence rather than artificial intelligence. It is all about how machines can help humans be better. And so in terms of best practice, the firms that have been able to get things going are leaders in these firms who focus on helping their people get better rather than fear of being replaced. That's the first step. So while it might be transformational, it is better framed as how can you be better using machines, and then get people along and then make things happen. So that's step one. The second one is a lot of firms that I see that are saying we'll use AI and so on in redefining the way we do business are building their castle on shifting stands. And what I mean by that is data. Data is the new oil. That's not my phrase. People have said that. But unless and until you have a data strategy, there is no point in talking about an AI strategy. And the key with data is, especially in the world of business, is firms have to understand that data cannot be in pockets. Data has to be shared, and data has to be universally available within for AI to work. But then think about it. For most managers in this world, actually for all managers in this world today, what is data? Data is power, because you can use it to do things which are because of an information arbitrage opportunity. And so if you ask someone, hand me your power, are they going to hand it over to you? The answer is no. And so their ability of leaders to be able to get everybody in the organization to share data is a critical thing. And what I've found is firms that do it well don't create an Athenian democracy mode where everybody gets to voice their opinion. More often than not, it's a mandate. And so there are things in the AI transformation that need to be done top-down. There are things that need to be bottom-up. Top-down is a mandate from the senior managers that data has to be centralized. Otherwise, it will not work. Every success story I've seen at enterprise level is where the firm creates a centralized data strategy. But having said that, I go back to my first point. You then need to make everybody empowered to be able to use it in a way that enhances their performance. And so my bet is that into the foreseeable future, firms that think about how AI augments their people are likely to win. Firms that are not able to explain this are going to land up in a situation where their organization is going to push back rather than be supportive of the transformation.
I was reading about an experiment between three machines. Two machines were communicating with each other in encrypted language, and the task of the third machine was to try and break the encryption. And this goes back and forth till it reaches a point where the third machine can no longer decrypt what the first two machines are talking about. The point I'm making is that at a time when so much is happening just between machines, and the programmers who set this experiment up, after a while, couldn't figure what the machines were saying to each other and couldn't decrypt it themselves because it just got so dense. They finally gave up. They said, okay, the machines have now decided to take this program into a zone of their own, and they couldn't figure out what was happening. Given the fact that machines are so much smarter than humans, and while everyone's trying their best to come to terms and grapple with the technologies and learn as much as they can, the machines are much smarter. So how do you lead this transformation at a time when these machines have a mind of their own?
Actually, I don't agree with what you're saying. Might be because I don't understand what you're talking about. Machines are smart. Machines are smart when they're fed with valuable information, reliable information that they're able to. Machines do things better once something has been well understood, as of today. We're still not in a world where machines can figure out things on their own. They need an objective function. They need content, but they can process that faster. They can analyze faster. But if it's garbage in, it's going to be garbage out. And so, as I see it, the way to think about the world, therefore, is, as I said again, it's augmented intelligence. And think about it as leaders in firms at all levels, they make decisions. And we are trying to figure out how AI can help them make decisions. And if you talk to the world of data science and ask them what kind of decisions are made, I mean, it's well established, these are not my terms, but there are three distinct forms of decisions that leaders make. One is what we call as prescriptive analytics. I mean, prescriptive analytics informing decisions. What is prescriptive analytics? You're using data from the past, historical data, and using machines to process that information and provide you with inputs that the human then uses to make decisions. Is that going away in the world of business? The answer is no, because there are still a large number of decisions, especially as you go higher up in the organization, where data is sparse, the uncertainty is high, and the contingency framework is very complex. So if a human has not fed a contingency framework into the machine, it is not going to be able to do it unless and until it is fed with vast amount of data to do some pattern recognition. That's not going to happen. So into the foreseeable future, all the leaders who are sitting out here, I would argue more than half the decisions they make will be what we call as prescriptive. And in that world, you have to ask the question, what can a machine do for me? The human still makes the decision. But what machines will do is analyze the data, historical data, and present it in a much better manner. And that's what happens today when you query ChatGPT. It goes in, checks on the body of knowledge, and then distills it to a form that you can use to make a decision. That's not changing. The machine does not make the decision there. The machine provides you with the background to make a decision. The second thing is predictive analytics. I mean, humans using machines to make predictions. I mean, over the last year, I've asked CEOs about how many of them have, a metric called customer churn on their dashboard, and virtually every CEO has that. Customer churn is the number of customers you lost in the last year. Is it a good thing to have? Absolutely yes, because it gives you a high-level feel for the health of the business. But what do you do with customer churn? It's after the fact. The customer is already churned. What might be better is having a metric which is customers at risk. If you have customers at risk, the leader can then actually take some action to prevent attrition. Now, machines can do that very well. Machines can provide, in this case, the prediction, and managers make decisions. Managers still need to make the decisions. So in predictive analytics, the augmentation is machines provide a look into the future in terms of predicting Predictions are never good. And in the world of business, accuracy is not what you want in an AI model, because missed opportunities can be very, very expensive to lose. So what you don't want is accuracy. What you want is economically optimal outputs provided by the AI system. And then managers make decisions. And my challenge to every leader in this room and outside is, in the coming year, make it a point to have at least 20% of your decisions using machines to predict first before you make any decisions. That's the way you adapt to the new world. And there again, machines are not making the decisions, machines are predicting. And then, of course, you have the third part, which is prescriptive analytics.
Descriptive.
No, prescriptive analytics. So descriptive is the first one, sorry. If I said prescriptive.
You missed out descriptive.
Yeah, so it's descriptive analytics is the first one, predictive is the second one, and the third one is prescriptive analytics. In prescriptive analytics, yes, machines operate autonomously. But do humans have a role to play? Yes. I mean, I have a Tesla. I sit in the car every day. Once I tell it where to go, it does a fantastic job and takes me to wherever I want to go. But it still waits for an instruction from me. And so humans do have to provide the objective function. Humans do have to provide the role, and then the machines take over. But is that going to be important as we going ahead? Yes, there will be more and more places where machines can do a better job. When will machines do a better job? When there are vast amounts of data, when there is some pattern that humans might not be able to recognize themselves, and there is the opportunity to optimize in a manner at high volume that humans cannot do. That world is going the machine way. But is business therefore going to be run by machines? Well, we are not in that world as yet, at least not into the foreseeable future.
You know, if you have a meeting that you're preparing for, and we have a session where we have a lot of artists, musicians, who are talking about how they're using AI, you know, what concerns me is that you can ask whether it's ChatGPT or any of the other engines for research or for questions, and they can do as good a job, if not better, than typical research teams. And therefore, when so many functions get automated, the question is, what's your suggestion to those sitting here, many mid-level senior executives, in terms of how they prepare for the next 10, if their career runways are still 10, 15 years, how do they prepare? Because a lot of what would have earlier been done either by them or by people around them can now be done at the snap of a finger by machines.
So I think the phrase to think about here is busyness with a Y instead of an I. If look at your own jobs and ask what are those tasks that keep you busy doing things that are non-value add. And if those tasks are things that are the ones that you use to justify your existence, you will be history. And so what you need to do is, whenever there is a busyness with a Y there, asking how a machine can help you manage that. And then with the time that's available, where can you add true value where machines can't really do them or do things on their own is the way to go. We all, if we were to do an audit of our work, myself included, it's in the 50, 60, 70% of our time is spent doing things that we should not be doing. Let machines do that. Don't fight the machines in those areas. But once the time is released, you better figure out how you want to use it, which means you need to use your intellect to do other things. So how can I then use machines to make better decisions is the way to think about it. So stepwise, first of all, think about it. What happened when the internet first came along? Let's take an example. Travel agents. When bookings went online, a lot of travel agents lost their jobs or their careers, or the entire industry collapsed. But has the travel agency gone away as a business? No, it's come back with a bang, because they came back by saying, well, bookings are no longer going to be what we focus on. We're going to focus on curating trips. And so they brought new value, and today that industry is more vibrant than ever before, because humans want that the curation of trips. But now they're facing another existential crisis. Well, just on the press of a button, an AI system can generate a better curated trip for you in any part of the world than anybody else can. Because remember again, the AI is relying on past experiences of others. It's picking up on that, condensing it, finding patterns and providing an answer. So that industry is facing an existential issue again. So they need to move to the next level. And that's happening to all of us. We have to accept that the routine tasks in our jobs are going to be done better by machines, which means we need, and that's how we stay ahead. I don't see that as an easy task, but I don't see that as something that we can avoid either. So the smarter we get in trying to stay ahead of machines, the better it is. Let's not fight them, let's leverage the power of machines.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw this open. We'll have a mic brought in front and just keep that ready and think about your question. In the meanwhile, the India Today group has been trying to use AI in different ways. So we've got this AI anchor. You may have seen her on television. So she has a question for Professor Das. So Sana, what's your question? Go ahead. In the meanwhile, we can have a mic out and that mic can then be passed around the room. So just give me a second. Let's take Sana's question first. Sana, go for it. Oh, there she is.
Great to meet you, Professor Narayandas. As an AI expert observing business leadership, I'm intrigued. How do you see AI transforming organizational decision-making? Are we heading towards a collaborative future between AI and human leadership, or do significant integration challenges lie ahead?
Sana, actually, I answered the question before you asked it. So, you know, Sana needs to work a little harder. If she had paid attention to what I had said, she wouldn't have asked me that question. Well, Sana, what you need to do is understand that we are focused on augmented intelligence and not artificial intelligence. You still are artificial, so when you augment yourself and come into the world of humans, I will be able to answer your question. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll take some questions here. Can we have the mic sent across to the gentleman sitting here?
Thank you, Professor Narayandas, for your valuable insights.
I'm very thrilled with Sana, so thank you very much.
It's intriguing to hear how AI is not just a tool but a potential partner in leadership. Building on what you said about trust and collaboration, could you share some strategies or examples of organizations that have successfully bridged the gap between AI integration and human leadership? How can businesses foster a culture that embraces this collaboration effectively?
Well, I think I kind of hinted towards that. Leaders who stand in front of their organizations and talk about how machines are going to replace humans are going to lose, and their firms will lose. Leaders who can stand in front of their people and say, I'm going to make each one of you better by leveraging machines are going to be the winners. So it's the job of senior leaders to find ways in which you can help each one of your people get better. And so it goes back to the point that I made earlier. Don't think transformation, think one person at a time, and think about how you can improve their ability to deliver value. Firms that go down in that direction can be very successful. I wrote a case on Tata Steel, and one of the things I really liked about Narendran, who's the leader of Tata Steel, what he did was mandated that machines would be used by every individual to find how they can create more value. And by creating an environment where each person, rather than fear for their job, was thinking hard about how to leverage machines to create more value in what they do, they landed up creating a value explosion within the firm. So there are times when leaders need to be top-down. For example, centralization of data for AI to be successful, that is a top-down measure. There is no option to it. At the same time, a bottom-up measure is to help people figure out ways in which they can leverage machines, empower them. And so the winning strategy is not trying to do one or the other. The winning strategy is to realize when you need to mandate and when you need to empower. A combination of that two done in a constructive manner leads to superior performance. Trying to do one or the other only is going to result in destruction of value.
Okay. We'll take some questions. Thank you, Sana, for that. Yes.
Uday Singhani out here. Thank you very much. Very insightful, sir. My question is, a lot is being said when it comes to decision making and augmented intelligence about AI ethics and the bias in the decision making process. Maybe if you could throw some light on that, sir.
It's a gray area. It's a huge gray area. Think about it. I mean, today when you use a, LLM, you use Chat GPT, it does not tell you where it gets the information from. And therefore, you have no idea about the veracity of the information it's collecting. And it presents to you, and then you take a decision on it. So there is, first of all, an issue about the reliability of information. The second one is, I, for 12 years, was the chair of Harvard Business Publishing. And HBR is an asset that we have in Harvard Business Publishing. HBR is a leading source of ideas in the world of business. I worry about how much of that has been absorbed into these systems without our consent. So there's a whole issue of copyright that needs to be thought through. The legality of misusing information is a big one. And then the point that you're making, which is bias. I mean, right now, if you take a pure approach of economic optimization, it is very likely that it's going to lead to the weak being affected more negatively. And that is dangerous. And so we are just at the beginning of understanding a new world. And we will need to write laws. And we have seen in the last several decades, regulation is lagging behind technology. So whoever is responsible for technology has to take a much more responsible approach. And those that use it have to understand the issues. I mean, we are not going to have this sorted out in a year or two. It's a long-term issue, and mankind will have to deal with it because there is a very good chance that many things will be done in a manner that exploits the weak and empowers the powerful. And that, we know, can lead to disaster, and humankind has suffered this a lot. So we have to be very careful on that. It's not an easy issue to eliminate, not at all.
Okay, we'll take some more questions. Can we have a mic sent across to the gentleman in the middle, please?
You get your chance. Professor Das, I'm a strategic human resource management professor and management consultant to boards, especially in the IT sector. Now, talent attrition is a burning issue 24/7. And what happens? There is a phase in the life cycle of an employee called quiet quitting, where he is physically present and mentally absent. Now, they say predictive analytics can give you data to see which employee is waning, has entered into the zone of quiet quitting. And yet, IT companies, which claim to be on the forefront of AI, really don't use it, and they have the highest attrition rates. When the employee puts his letter of resignation, they say, then we all knew about it. The humans say it. So this is a dilemma I am experiencing. Maybe you could enlighten me. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. The last few words you used are important. You said this is a dilemma.
Yes.
And you didn't say it's a problem. And it's just very important. Because dilemmas don't have solutions. Problems do. And so by calling it a dilemma, you captured the essence. We don't have an answer to that. I mean, I would answer it in a different way. I'm not going to answer your question. I'm going to say what I think is the answer to your question. This morning I was in a meeting with senior leaders, CHROs and senior leaders of talent. And I was giving them the example, and one of the most, right now, I love teaching, is a case that a colleague of mine, Young Mi Moon, has written on Starbucks. It's a 20-year-old case. And the reason I love teaching that case today is, in that case, the question being asked is, should Starbucks spend $40 million trying to provide better support to its baristas? Baristas are those that make the coffee behind the counter. And why I teach that case is I tell people whatever you do with this case, whatever decision you come up with in this case discussion, I'm going to predict the future. In the future, is 5 years from now, your chairman is going to issue a memo to the entire organization saying we have lost our soul. And 10 years later, he's going to repeat the same thing. And in 2024, 19 years later, you're going to fire a CEO for the very reason that is, we have lost a soul. So the question is, how do you lose your soul? At the same time, that company has gone from a market cap of 6 billion to 110 billion. So economic performance has been off the charts, but it loses its way all the time. And my answer to that, or rather my analysis to that thing, is they focused on growth at any cost. And the problem that I see a lot here in India is firms are focused on growth, but not growth through right strategy and right execution, but growth at any cost. And when you do that, the resource that suffers the most is human capital. You burn your people. And in this world today, the most precious resource is human capital. So firms that are going to do well are firms that nurture human capital, not burn it. And if you want to nurture human capital, you need to have a right way to grow and a right way to get it done. And so that's going to differentiate firms, successful firms, from not so successful firms. So this quiet quitting that you're talking about is a sign of a firm that values growth more than their people. And that is not sustainable, sir. And so I don't know if I've answered your question, but that's the way to think about it.
Okay, we'll take some more questions. The gentleman there in the corner, please, can a mic be sent? Okay, go on.
Thank you. So, Professor Das, my name is Bhavik Dangarwala, and I am from the technology industry. I work for Soft Cell Technologies and have been in the industry for 3 decades. I also have my own social cause initiative, which is a very small thing that I am running on conserving human capital. You just mentioned about human capital, right? Now I'm coming back to what we were talking about machines, allowing machines to do what they do better. And then it will give you more time, right? So we have to find out where do we use this extra time. I'm just repeating what you said. Are you saying actually that we'll actually get more time to innovate? Number one. Number two, people will, with lateral thinking, out of the box thinking, are probably going to be far more valuable to organizations, right? And number three is, senior most positions are going to be more creative, rather than mechanical. I mean, just an inference that I drew. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I actually didn't mean to say what you said, but I really like what you're taking away from it. So, I never thought of it that way. So, thank you. You just helped me understand what I'm trying to say myself. I would not say creative. Lateral thinking, Bono's lateral thinking is the right way to think about it, but it's one way to think about it. I mean, you can create value without having to be creative. I mean, there are many ways to do it. Just think about value add in a more generic sense rather than saying that one has to be creative to do it. In the creative world, there's a lot of AI and how it helps people get better. But in the world of business, value add doesn't necessarily mean you have to be, left brain thinking or right brain. I don't know which side is the creative side. But I'm thrilled with whatever you're walking away with. So I'll use your answer the next time someone asks me that question.
Thank you so much.
This is where Professor Das is getting into form. If you feel like cold calling any of your previous students, you can go ahead and do that as well. Okay, the gentleman there, can we have a mic sent across to him, please?
Here you go. He's going to take time.
Thank you so much. Professor Das, my name is Kapil Jain. And, all these major companies which are into AI, especially, ChatGPT or Anthropic or Perplexity or Google DeepMinds, and the kind of market share which NVIDIA is having is around 70 to 80%, right? Now, when we are in India, are we going to just use those major giants plugins in our startups here, or are we have some kind of opportunity looking into account the kind of languages, the kind of data which we are having in this country? So what are your thoughts about this monopoly of those bigger companies like Google and Amazons of the world and Nvidia, and looking into account how India can have their own AI models?
What you're asking is not idiosyncratic to the current situation. It's been there as long as mankind has existed. Those that have power try to use it, and those that don't try to mimic it. And so if you play the game that the leaders are playing, you're only going to strengthen them further. So if you want for Indian firms to succeed and not get locked into the models that come from the West, then I would say, the previous question that was asked, think creatively and find your own approach to doing things. And then prove to others that there is value in how you do it. This is virgin territory. This is open territory. There is a tendency to follow the path that others have taken. And when you do that, don't complain that others walked on it before you did. Chart your own path, find your way, and then make people come your way. That takes a lot of guts, and that can be done. But if you do it, you're going to win. Go back 30 years. Go back 40 years. The Indian IT industry here today, how many people imagined it would be here today in the world? Go all over the world. They talk about India and IT projects synonymous in the same sentence. That's because there were a few individuals in this country who visioned that future. We need that vision now. And so if you're going to use the same GPUs that the others are using, you can do something else, but then find a more energy efficient way of doing it. Harness the resources that you have to come up with a model that works. And it's very clear, whether it's in the world of sports or in the world of business, you win when you play your game better than anybody else. Right? If you're going to play someone else's game, don't complain. You've decided to play their game, they're going to be better than you. Right? I don't know, you might be too young, but India forever was the world leader in field hockey. And it kept winning. So what did the Western world do? They changed the game. They took away natural turf and put artificial turf. At a time when India couldn't afford a single artificial turf here. So the genius of Indian hockey players, which was dribbling, was taken away, and hockey became a power sport. Today I can't even recognize the world of hockey. So they changed the game. Well, reverse engineer that and work the other way around. And so I find it hard when someone says, well, I have to use what they are doing and therefore I'm forced to it and I'm going to lag. Well, then don't play that game. You have enough and more brain power here in this country to compete on any front with anyone. What you need is the courage, and what you need is a concerted effort, a community effort to harness resources to make it happen. No single firm will be able to get it done. So you come together, you build your resources together, you find your places where you can achieve. This country is capable of doing unbelievable things. So, be original. Be like one of the Bollywood stars. Each one of them is original. Did I answer your question? Are you happy with my answer? All right.
Let's spend a moment, sir, on digital marketing in the AI age, and how this is different from having the database tools to be able to power your consumer set, figure out how your marketing pieces are tracking. Because now a lot of the creativity can also be generated through AI. So how do you see that change? And for those who are in those kind of marketing roles, how are you suggesting and recommending to them to adapt as this technology becomes available to them, which they can benefit from, but also potentially poses dangers to their job?
So if I talk about the marketing Marketing is a restrictive word. I mean, let's think about market facing. The business world globally organized itself into three functions: marketing, sales, and support or service. And it could afford to do that because most firms had control over the customer's journey. They were able to, I mean, you might have heard of soap operas. I mean, I ask people, do you know where the word soap operas comes from? These are the Bold and the Beautiful and the Young and the Restless shows in the US. Anybody knows why they are called soap operas? Other than Anjali, because she knows answers to every question I can think of. Exactly. When network TV happened in the US, the networks had control over the consumer who watched TV all afternoon. The soap company, Procter & Gamble, realized that it had captive audience in the afternoon and started advertising detergents in these shows to promote their detergent. And that's how the word soap opera came, because the soap company sponsored the program that was shown in the afternoon because the customer was captive to it. So we lived in a world where firms had control over when they wanted to talk to customers or clients and how they wanted to talk. In the digital world, the customer goes on a journey of their own. They don't follow your sequential thing about, now let me tell you what it is, now let me get you ready to buy it, now let me help you experience it. No, the customer decides to do what they want. And so fundamentally, what AI is going to do is break down the functions of marketing, sales, and support. It's going to be a customer journey management. The problem that I see is boards and senior leaders who have grown up in a world where these were silos will be unable to break down the structures because they're not thinking in that mode. So I think AI is going to disrupt this whole thing, but leaders who are incapable of understanding this disruption are going to be hurdles in the path to the change. My forecast is in a decade from now, there will be many industries where there will be just a customer journey function, and functions called marketing or sales or service will not exist. And that's already happening in a few places in the US. And so those of you who say that I'm in sales or I'm in marketing or I'm in support, I mean, you want to prepare for the future, start talking about I am responsible for part of the customer journey, and then figure out how to get yourself relevant in a bigger part of the customer journey. That's how you're going to manage. Good news for you is your board is not in a place where they can figure this out, and so they will help you keep your job for as long as it. So two things: either go with the customer or convince your board that the current world is good enough. I mean, both will work.
No, but let's spend some time on this, because you make this point in your writings as well, that people in C-suite positions or in keyboard positions who can potentially be enablers of the use of artificial intelligence can also be roadblocks because they simply don't understand enough about the technology and therefore could be taking the wrong decisions. But the reality of the corporate world is that they're in the position that they are at this moment till the time their jobs and their companies get disrupted. How should they prepare, potentially having, say, collaborators or bringing in experts, younger experts, etc., to be able to ensure that they stay in their jobs, continue to power the growth that the company requires, and yet don't have a situation where their companies and they themselves get disrupted by younger, hungrier, more tech-savvy challengers?
You know, there are many ways, but I'll just pick on one because I found that to be very compelling. And I saw that in the Tata Steel, when I wrote a case on Tata Steel, is reverse mentoring is a very powerful way to bring the digital world to your senior leaders very quickly. It's also a very powerful way to let the current generation recognize what it takes to be a leader. I hear a lot of people say that the new generation is impatient. They want to be CEOs on day one, and they just don't want to believe in this. Put in your time before you get to where you need to be. And so one way to manage this is expose people to the next generation by creating channels of communication between the two on a one-to-one basis rather than, just a community program. So that's one model that really has worked with firms that I've seen trying to get their leaders more savvy with the current world.
Professor Das, we're out of time in this conversation, but it's been an absolute delight. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Can we have a very warm round of applause for Professor Narayandas for taking out time and joining us here at this Congress. Thank you so much. An
Thank you very
absolute
much.
pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank
Take
you
care.
so
And
much.
thank you for no cold calls today. I appreciate that.
Thank you for no cold calls either.